Hey, what's poppin'? I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I know, the sky is blue sentence, and in my journey to better appreciate a franchise I care deeply about, I wanted to try out the original Resident Evil trilogy for the PS1 to see if they still hold up. I am just about 20 years old, and so I was not alive when these all came out. My entry point into the series was when I went with my brother to a Black Friday sale at Walmart when I was 13, the same year the Resident Evil 2 remake came out, and my brother bought the game. I saw him play the game, and my first reaction was, wow. That crap is scary. 6 grueling years later, and it is now one of my favorite games ever made. If there are no Resident Evil fans, then that means I am dead. As of recently, there's been quite a bit of discourse around the concept of remakes and remasters again. And as someone who does personally agree in the remakes being fantastic, I wanted to go back and look at the other side of things and finally explore how people originally were introduced to these characters and this story. I will try my best to completely block out any comparisons to the remakes initially. I will also rank the 3 at the end and give them all number scores, like a good old-fashioned retrospective. So sit back with me, maybe grab a drink, maybe go to a drive-thru and grab some McDonald's, and come with me as we enjoy some Peak. All right? All right.
Resident Evil.
Now, what better place is there to start than with the mother of all survival horror? Resident Evil, regardless of what you might think of its quality, is definitely a unique experience. I kind of struggle to even call it a zombie game. You fight like spiders, snakes, hunters, and a tall naked man. Even the setting is weird. When it comes to outbreak movies and games, I'd argue that the most common setting by far is a city, maybe even a neighborhood. Sometimes if the author wants more desolation, they'll go for a more lonely place like a forest or a space station. But by being set in a mansion, I think the game gives you a weird tone throughout. It's like the game wants to be campy, but it also wants to be scary. The formula created by this game was revolutionary, but clearly it was so ambitious that the developers were not able to fully realize every little thing about it. But to better understand my point, why don't we actually run through the game? When we begin, we are in a covert military group called STARS, and we're here because our Bravo team has stopped all communications. Once we arrive, we see dogs with rabies. Oh my god, run for your lives! And then we take refuge in the mansion and are asked to explore our surroundings. And once we are in control, one design choice is immediately placed upon you: the camera. Cameras are the bane of gamers' existence. It took decades for us to truly figure out what to do with this damn thing, but I'd like to propose an idea to you guys, that the fixed camera in this game is actually kind of fire. When you look at a design choice, you have to look at it in the lens of, what does this give me and what does it take away? In Resident Evil's case, it takes away more than it gives. But I think that's the point. Constantly, the camera will be in tight spaces, facing back at you instead of where you need to go, limiting your idea of what's around the corner to only what you can hear. This adds to the scrappy nature of the game. Not only do you have no ammo, no guns, no space, no saves, no money, no maidens, but no 20/20 vision as well. Future Resident Evil games with more modern cameras don't sacrifice this too, by the way. But since more agency is given to the player in those, the new solution is to make everything dark as hell. In terms of what the camera gives you, I'd argue that it helps streamline the experience. Think about it. If the camera doesn't require an analog stick, and because of the fixed camera, your aiming is done automatically to help guarantee that your bullets count, then the game now is firmly letting you know that it isn't going to physically demand skill from you. The game wants your encounters with zombies to be a choice. Do you use resources, tank the hit, or do you try and dodge past them? When you find more green herbs, do you choose to carry them and risk not having space for a key item? Or do you decide to ditch the heals? They even found a darn way to make saves a choice, which I think personally is one of my favorite game decisions of all time. Saving uses an item. Like, that's crazy and super cool. And what's great about this gameplay style is that once the first cutscene plays and you are in the mansion, the game just leaves you to figure it out. I've always liked that hands-off approach to storytelling that Resident Evil presents. The game is dead set on letting you yourself learn to progress. And progression in this game feels so freaking good. You feel good when you unlock every part of the mansion. You feel good when you'll find stronger weapons. And you feel good when you learn just a little bit more about where you're at. It also feels even better when you replay the game and grab everything 10 times faster. However, this is where I want to divert away from the core Resident Evil formula and look specifically at this game. Because while the formula it created is great, I don't think it nailed everything on the first go. I've established now that the game boils down everything to decision making. That's where the thrill of the gameplay is at. So for it to be effective, the game needs to really push you. When I played through the game, I honestly felt it was a little bit too easy. I played this game and the next two using the copies you can buy on GOG, So they might have a few differences. For example, my first entire run did not require me to use ink ribbons to save. It wasn't until my second that it appeared, so maybe the console versions are different. Or maybe I'm just too good at Resident Evil games now. But the game was barely making me have to choose on what to kill. Once I got the shotgun and the bazooka, I entered a really good rhythm where each save I'd switch to the gun with the most ammo, slime everyone out like I'm King Bond, and by the time I'm out, I had made it to another box with more ammo for the next gun. And then I would just repeat that until the end of the game. Like bro, when it comes to video games, I go fumble for fumble. I enter slow state. The very first time I played the remake, I got soft locked and had to restart. So really, I feel like the game is just easy. I also think another layer of roughness is that after the initial section in the mansion, most of the puzzles are really underdeveloped. Like tonally, it feels weird that in the courtyard outside of a gothic mansion is a wooden shed that houses a futuristic lab with sharks. And since the puzzle is just that you gotta get down there and drain it, you barely spend any time figuring out why the hell sharks are swimming in a basement with doors for humans that require you to flip a switch in the water itself. If you try to rationalize the gameplay into a cohesive story, the game will just laugh at you. There is only one concept I think within the game that actually does a really good job integrating gameplay with the story. And that's the fact that you can select your character. I think personally, that's just really cool, man. The character you pick decides what weapons you find, what things your character is good at, which side characters help you, and how much damage you can take. Now, the problem with this decision is that for this game, it is very, very apparent which character was more curated. And this is the part of the video where I sit down here and I have to confess something to you guys. Guys, I'm sorry. I didn't finish a run with Chris. But you don't understand. The game has it out for me. After I was all said and done with Jill Valentine, I hopped on to play as Chris. And for some reason, there was no ink ribbons, bro. It was trying to make me sit down and play this crap for 3 straight hours. I had to mow the lawn that day, and so I was playing in real life survival horror with my family, just trying to beat the darn thing. I died somewhere after you see the first hunter, and when that happened, I was like, bruh, all right, I'm good. Sorry. Maybe I will be a little extra biased for that reason when I tell you that, in my opinion, Jill was way too easy, and Chris is way too hard. Because beyond that unique, cursed experience, the brother doesn't have any pockets. And I'm sorry, but 8 is just enough spaces to get by. Even when I knew what to do, it was hard to move with 6 spaces. He also doesn't have a lockpick, which means you have to hold even more items just to progress with the small keys and the sword key you grab at the beginning. If someone wants to play this game, I'll tell you right now, I will always recommend you guys should play as Jill Valentine. Please use my story as a cautionary tale. But now, speaking of the story, let's look at it, shall we? As I've said, it is very bare bones. You're stuck in the Spencer mansion and you need to get out. Along the way, you find out that Albert Wesker is working with Spencer and Umbrella to make viruses, and that Jill's buddy Barry betrays you because Wesker has his family hostage. As a standalone story, the plot points are fine, but at this point, the elephant in the room probably needs to be addressed. The voice acting,
No! Don't go!
is a nightmare. At least the original music sounds amazing and can hide some of the sloppiness, but even then, sometimes they're edited weirdly.
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this.
Bro, what the heck was that? But at least this game started the iconic Resident Evil story beat where the lab is about to self-destruct and you have a final run followed by a boss fight that you blow up with a rocket launcher. You get out of there and then you save the day. Truly exceptional. Except that's not what I got. Yeah, so apparently on my run, Barry just got off screen and bled to death next to the exit. And then after that, Chris just tells me to go to the helicopter because ladies first. And that's it? No boss fight or nothing? Why did that happen? How do you get this ending? You know what? Hold up. Let me look this up. Okay. It's because I didn't wait for Barry to give me the rope? That's so freaking dumb. But nah, I already didn't do Chris's run. I can't show you guys that I'm a fraud anymore. And so I sped around the whole game right after for 2 hours, waited for butthurt Barry to drop the damn rope so I could climb it. And I got to face the tyrant, blow him up, and get out of there. Hell yeah. The original Resident Evil, I've got to say, from what my experience has been, is far from perfect. And honestly, I can see why the remake would be so acclaimed. I feel like that game just makes everything make sense. You feel me? More stuff is given to Chris to balance him out with Jill, and the story is much more serious. Going back though, I was surprised at how much still holds up with the gameplay. It was weird experiencing it because when you hear people talk about this game, all they say is how much the remake replaces this one and how old and rough this one is. But what isn't coming across in those videos is that the gameplay is basically exactly like the gameplay I've grown to expect. For all intents and purposes, it felt like I was playing the remake in that regard. It's almost like games are kind of designed with the most care and passion into the gameplay. Who would have thought? So, I think I'm going to give the very first Resident Evil a very classical 7 out of 10.
Resident Evil 2.
So, Resident Evil was a success, and naturally Capcom wanted a sequel. And so after a few rewrites and reimaginings, we would receive Resident Evil 2 on the PS1 2 years after the first one. And with an established formula, all this game needed to be was a refinement of the formula established in the first game. Now, did we get that? Well, I'd argue, yes. We did, and then some. Off rip, this game has a much tighter focus for its vibe. In my opinion, it really nails the zombie outbreak aesthetic, arguably to such a big extent that it's hard to tell these take place in the same world. At least, that's until you see a 6-foot-tall spider in the sewers. Bro, seriously, how are you so big? The presentation of the game has also clearly taken itself more seriously, and you can tell that right away because now we have fully CG cutscenes and actual voice actors for the roles. Regardless of what you feel about the story, you can't deny that for this one, they actually started trying. But okay, let's do exactly what we did with the first game and just start at the beginning. And already, before we even get to the loading screen, we are given the choice: Leon S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield. This actually is even more important of a decision than the previous game, because whoever you pick first will permanently change how you run with the other character. If you pick Claire as your first playthrough and you yoink the extra hit pouch on your first run, then as Leon, when you go back, you'll see it's missing. This is known as the zapping mechanic. And I wanted to talk about this first because whenever anyone talks about this game, they always bring it up like, bro, the remake is good and all, but the A and B runs suck in that game. The OG does it way better. So I thought, okay, this must be some really creative, great interconnectivity for it to mog the remake that badly, right? So I played Claire A and then did Leon B because I knew that was the game's canon route. Once I finally entered Leon's run, it took about 5 minutes for me to realize, wait, this is literally the exact same. My whole life, I was just believing that A and B would completely synergize perfectly, but nah. It's basically all gameplay related. Leon and Claire both have their story related puzzles to differentiate, but all the universal ones are repeated verbatim. You still need the valve for the fire, the unicorn medal, the keys, etc, etc. Leon also gets his own batch of herbs. Bro, I was trying to cook my own Leon run by taking all the weed as Claire on some Snoop Dogg crap. Fuck! Why did more dope grow by the time Leon showed up? That doesn't make sense. There's one scripted decision to leave something for the other character, but besides that, I barely felt the effects of the second run. I think this is one of those cases where you hear something from everyone around you to overhype you and set false expectations, and you get the biggest mood killer when you realize you played yourself. But hey, the multiple runs in the remake I thought were amazing on their own, and so this is still enough of a unique concept for me to say that it's truly still genius. I mean, I beat the original Resident Evil in about 2 to 3 hours? If you have 2 characters, you'll probably get all the unique content in around 5 hours. This game can give you up to 4 different runs of entertainment, which doubles what you got beforehand. It also helps that now they finally nailed basically every rough patch of the first game. This is a textbook example of how a sequel should improve upon its predecessor. First things first, both characters have 8 slots now. Woo! The gun variety also vastly improved. Leon rocks a lot of standard American weaponry such as his classic Matilda, a tactical shotgun, a flashy magnum, and a goddamn flamethrower. And Claire, on the other hand, gets something a little more mundane for her more inexperienced personality, such as a grenade launcher and a freaking gun that shoots lightning bolts. God damn, I didn't know you were chill like that. So playing as these characters has a lot of unique variability as a result, and it wasn't as shallow as one character having more item slots and the other having more health. Because Claire has such ready access to a flame weapon, she has a much easier time with the poison ivy monsters, whereas Leon gets one percentage based flame weapon that runs out with around 5 kills. Leon now has a unique item to counterbalance Claire's master lockpick, which is the lighter. Interestingly, they also nerfed the strength of the lockpick by not allowing any main puzzle doors to be skipped with it, unlike before. And that leads to the lighter actually being more handy for the puzzles. I think this is a much better step in the right direction. But honestly, I still feel like the lockpick is kind of OP. Like, needing a whole slot to hold keys just for a chance you can find something to open, as opposed to the lighter, which doesn't really bother you that much because you need to only get it out of the box when you're at one of those 2 fateful encounters, is just not as valuable. The lighter would need to give you benefit on the go consistently for it to truly match the lockpick. But sadly, burning zombies is a mechanic that won't be seen for quite a while. What I'm glad to see implemented now, though, is that the game is much harder. They just simply throw way more at you. It was honestly a little bit out of pocket too sometimes, like, bro, damn! They removed auto-aim now too, leading to more quick on my feet thinking situations, and gave you a more scarce amount of ink ribbons to truly keep you starving of resources. This is a real ass game. I had much more fun with it than the first game on basically all fronts. Above all, what I've learned so far up to this point in its inception was the game was using its world and characters as an excuse for cool new gameplay ideas. Like genuinely, if you try to take these seriously as stories, you're gonna have an aneurysm. The plot is barely explained to you, characters fall in love with each other in less than an hour of gameplay time, and while the presentation looks better, it still very much has its rough patches.
Easy, easy there. I'm not a zombie. You're safe now.
Story defenders, tell me with a straight face that the chopped Leon of this movie is the same character as the Chad one from RE4. However, story-wise, I will give props to the direction this game took because it completely defines the formula of Resident Evil going forward. And that's the fact that we are not playing as Jill or Chris. It makes sense that Claire is supposed to be the canon first run because she's looking for Chris, which is a tie to the first. Then you play as the new rookie cop Leon on his first day on the job. I think this is such a cool decision because as the games progress, it is super fascinating to see the journeys of everyone involved. I love that it starts with Jill and Chris, then Leon and Claire, then you get a nice reunion with Jill, and then after the time skip, you see what happened to Leon, and so on and so forth. The world is so much richer as a result. And an actual knock I do have on the newest trifecta of games is that they only give us details on one character, and they only occupy like half of the game. Chris having 2 back-to-back games while every other character is locked behind 2012 PS3 limbo still frustrates me. But anyway, time for the basic plot details. The whole city is run down because of Umbrella fumbling yet another virus and causing an outbreak. You go to the police station for shelter, and as Leon, you try to find a way out to safety while Claire tries to save this girl she finds early on called Sherry. Eventually, Leon finds a woman who will be very important to him called Ada Wong. If someone just showed up in my life wearing a red cocktail dress and said they work for the FBI, I mean, they'd probably be a memorable part of my life too. You try to leave through the sewers, and as Claire, you meet Sherry's mom who thinks you are trying to steal her virus, and so she ends up unhelpful. And then as Leon, you try to stop her because Ada is gaslighting you to actually steal the virus from her. From there, you find a trolley in the sewers under the police station that takes you to Umbrella's giant laboratory? I mean, okay, maybe the market for buying property is really high, and so they had to make do buying their secret evil illegal facility under the most righteous building in the city. But anyway, after you slime the tyrant chasing you and William Birkin, you guys make it out of the trolley and vow to take down Umbrella. And just as fast as it came, it went. Resident Evil 2, I think, is truly amazing for its time, and in the modern day, is still a great experience. I wasn't bored playing through it at all, and I found the gameplay to successfully challenge me in a lot of ways. As a big fat Leon Glazer, it is fascinating to go back and see how he was originally portrayed. As a fan of Claire, it's nice seeing her again because I know deep down, we are never seeing her again in another mainline game. When it comes to giving this a score, it's kind of hard for me to decide. I fluctuate because the game has very clear strengths and very clear weaknesses. But the game also clearly has a goal, and all the strengths are the things they purposefully set out to do. And story cohesion are clearly things they aren't aiming for. And so with that mindset, I'll be nicer on the game, and I'll give it, for now, a tentative 9 out of 10.
Resident Evil.
Now, out of all the games that I wanted to check out for the first time, this was the one I was the most excited for. And holy crap, we're Jill again. Let's go! I was very pleasantly surprised by the game. Most of what I knew about the game, like the fact that the development cycle was short, it wasn't even supposed to be a mainline game, and the poor reception of the remake all put me off beforehand just a little bit. But it's good that I went in with an open mind because this game was kind of goated, yo. The game now focuses on one character and one plotline, which is something I will have to dock points for because it's more generic and less interesting to me, but in return, we get a much beefier game, and so I'm not mad. The other games were like 3 to 4 hours, and it felt at their best. They still had some areas and sections that were underexplored. Not only did I not feel that here, but the game gives you a massive shift of the status quo with a new, lovable, fantastic addition. This game is wholly defined by the Nemesis. Whether you're outside, inside, with people, with zombies, at the grocery store, on a date, this dude is gonna be there. A pursuer type character is an amazing natural escalation after the previous 2 games. With more ammo, resources, and Jill being a more experienced fighter, you need stronger threats to keep the danger up. What surprised me as well is that, by all accounts, Jill here should feel like Leon in RE4, or maybe like Chris in RE5. She's strong, capable, and probably city level if we're trying to power scale for real. But she feels nothing like them. The game manages to keep the core of survival horror in a unique way, where instead of long-lasting sense of dread throughout the whole thing, you get the survival part of the name because of how scrappy the setting is, with Jill literally in her casual fit and just a pistol when the game starts, and the horror part of the name coming with a little more action flavor due to the Nemesis and the amount of enemies that could be overkill as well. I played the game on hard mode and felt the difficulty was very well curated. Well, except for one fight. But we'll get to that. I like the amount of obstacles, the amount of puzzles were a good quantity. You got the storage upgrade at a good time as well to help you, and you get plenty of the Za to help you heal as well. Something also to help you is the new dodge mechanic, but it wasn't very reliable, and its lack of iframes meant sometimes Jill would just slide to the left in the wall on some cha-cha slide crap and get got by a zombie. As a matter of fact, it's a problem that there's no way to change controller button configuration for this game, because to dodge, you either need to aim at the right time, or when you're aiming, you press shoot at the right time. So sometimes Jill will just slide into a wall instead of shooting when you're trying to kill an enemy before they get you. And that means that sometimes it's better to play like a bot and press the shooting button at the most awful times on purpose to get a few bullets out for a trade at least. However, the move is at the most ideal when it's a happy accident. Sometimes you're in a big crowd and you're ready to spray and pray, but then Jill will look at you dead in the face and say, nah, I'd win, and just skip the whole encounter for you. And in those instances, I appreciated the mechanic. The only time I ever used the mechanic faithfully as intended was for one boss fight, but we'll get to that fight later. As I've said, the level design is much more realized than the previous games. I got really scared at the beginning because they immediately drop you into the police station as Jill, and to me that felt like a massive punch to the gut, because it felt like the game was cheapening out and like reusing assets. But luckily, the game does not feel like RE2 DLC. And in fact, there weren't really any occasions after that where I was reminded of the fact that this was in the same location in the same time span. The city as a puzzle space was great for its sheer size and scope, and the other locations like the clock tower, hospital, and the final mandatory lab set piece all felt inspired. The choices in this game also add a subtle mix of the multiple playthroughs from the last few games and spun it into a fresh new way that fits into the single storyline very well, causing changes to the items you collect and how Nemesis takes damage from you. Now for the story, we get the standard fare, and at this rate, I would have been more disappointed if it was different, especially since this time we already know the events that started everything from before. It's good that we're just in. We find out they're sending something to hunt STARS members, and that's that. This game has by far the most thought out plot thus far, with the basic premise of us needing to get the hell out of Dodge before a tactical nuke comes to blow up everybody being weaved, with Carlos and his crew early on meeting Jill and having similar goals for different reasons. And since they work for Umbrella, but on some of the lowest levels of the corporate ladder, we get tension between Jill, who believes Carlos is boss just sent your average Florida man to go slime her out, and Carlos, who thinks Umbrella just sells Ozempic to the public. The whole first part is you finding the materials to get the train to start, and after you receive all the parts, you turn it on to try to leave, only to immediately have Nemesis ruin all of your plans. Dang. You then crash land on the clock tower, and there you see that apparently help is supposed to arrive if you ring the bell for evacuation. So you traverse through the whole burnt down building, go through trials and tribulations, and finally you power it up and rescue is here. But of course, Nemesis also slimes the helicopter out and then slimes you out quite literally by giving you the virus. And here is where I need to take a minute to talk to you guys about this boss fight. Why was this so dang hard, bruh? Let's start from the beginning. When I entered the fight, personally, I was at full health and I had 2 red herbs, but no greens. Already, that's cooked. Thankfully, I had lots of ammo to spare, but with the power these dudes' punches had, it didn't even matter. I had to fight this dude for 2 days. I fought him longer than it took me to beat the first Resident Evil. These were endurance runs of pain, where I had to successfully try to weave and break the ankles of an enemy who runs faster than you and can stun lock you into multiple grabs at once. And if you're in the red, you might as well call it quits. There's no saving you. It was so much harder than everything else. I had to look up if this was the reaction of other people, and then I found out that actually, there was a decision in the train that changes whether he's got a rocket launcher or not. Apparently, he's easier with it than without it, so screw me, I guess. And if you can't outrun him, then you have to dodge him. But I guess Jill didn't get the memo because she won't friggin' get out of the damn way. I guess it seems like she'd rather boogie than to live. This was so damn unfair, so darn difficult, so friggin' demanding. And it was so much fun. It's my favorite part of the game. Maybe I'm broken, but I will always take in stride an opportunity to play a Dark Souls boss in the middle of my game. Truthfully, that part was so much fun that it kind of outshadows the following sections. To me, the game ends there when you beat him. I actually had to use my dodge mechanic, and after that fight, I used it consistently for the rest of the game. I had this strategy I'm really proud of, where I would shoot 6 magnum bullets one at a time so I could dodge Nemesis, then use my eagle to unload a clip before I could get hurt. Then I used the minesweeper to place a bunch of bombs on the floor so he'd get spawn camped, and then I'd cap it all off with one final long endurance run with the eagle until he was down. But yeah, so after that, the game does continue. And after Jill can't fight because she has Ligma, you play as Carlos. And I have to say that he has by far the best side character level in this trilogy. Although, it is mainly because the other 2 games weren't really trying. Like, seriously, you give Ada and Sherry a section where they move boxes? Come on. After you vaccinate Jill, you then play as her again, go to the courtyard, do some more killing, and then you finally kill Nemesis with a laser cannon. After all your trials and tribulations, you finally get on that helicopter and get escorted with Carlos by the one and only Barry Burton. Wait, that's actually not what I got. Wait, why did Nikolai get off so early? I'm only on the chopper with Carlos? Why? Because I pushed Nemesis off the bridge instead of jumping off? But how does that even connect to Barry? How does that influence the ending? And screw you, game. I love you. 9 out of 10. And so, we've made it to the end. And I think as a whole, this was a very positive experience. I liked all of these games, and I've learned a lot. I can see why the discourse is so heated on the annihilation of the originals in favor of the remakes to the public masses. My personal take, now that I've played through everything, is that I can tell first and foremost, these games love being games. That's all they are. All they want to be, and all you get playing them. The franchise at this point was a beautiful excuse for talented creators to make a game in a genre they just created to fit their aesthetics and own personal opinions of fun. For that alone, these deserve to be acknowledged. And also, because the concept of erasing art in any shape or form is not something I really vibe with. As far as the remakes are concerned, I think they are fulfilling a different role. It really felt like with every new original Resident Evil, you get priority on new ideas over honing something that exists. But by the nature of remakes, you don't really need to fully reinvent the wheel. I mean, yeah, they still did it for 2 onwards, but that's just because Capcom is the GOAT. The point is, the strength of the remakes is they are giving you a through line. Not only are they actually giving thought to the stories to make sure they make sense, but they have a goal of unifying them all to fit and truly feel like a big, consistent, tonally resonant franchise. The remakes are just as much of an example of the new director's visions as they were for the old guys in the original. The first game, for example, felt really tonally all over the place and scrambled, but the remake? Wow. It's like they make everything make sense. It has a setting, atmosphere, and style like no other. That's the power of that last 20% of mistakes being polished up. What this has made me learn above all else is that before I was fully against the first Resident Evil being made again for the RE engine era, but seeing how unique the originals were versus the remakes, I can see that it's apples to oranges. The originals were made to make a different crowd happy entirely, and even the GameCube game is much more designed to cater to the audience that craves for the unspoken art in game design, gameplay loops, and pacing. To anyone watching this video that might also feel like that's the sort of stuff they like in games too, then I recommend that you check these games out. They're all readily available on PlayStation, and they're right here on PC a few clicks away, so there's never been a better time. Doing a game trilogy as my first full-length video was probably a mistake. The Nemesis fight single-handedly delayed this video an extra week, so sorry about that, but I hope you guys enjoyed, and with all that said and done, I will hopefully see you guys all later. Goodbye.